in addition to seeing one independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, swing into the number first spot in the Monmouth poll that came out today, and seeing Biden's campaign absolutely and entirely implode, him falling to the third spot, Elizabeth Warren falling into the number 2 spot. Well, Sanders and Warren sharing first spot. Sanders gained more points in that particular poll in order to get to that particular spot. In addition to seeing that and chest thumping a bit for that, because that poll was awesome to watch, especially when you read into it and you see this kind of across every sector, every demographic that you can think of that would be a demographic, Biden has imploded. I was chest thumping. And then I saw Sanders' camp put out this tweet. And I said, damn, I don't like that tweet. But I do want to talk about that tweet because there's a little bit more context to it, even though I still don't like that tweet. Let's get into Russiagate stuff. And that Russiagate stuff in the context of one Senator, Bernie Sanders, that is in a complicated, to put it mildly, situation in dealing with anything associated with the Russiagate topic. Welcome to the Soapbox. Hello everyone, this is Soapbox at Night. I am your host, Jamarl Thomas. Guys, I hope you guys are doing all right tonight. If you guys like this content, please like, share, subscribe. And of course, you can always support through PayPal or Patreon if you absolutely are really digging this content. This is a late night soapbox, and I have 1 or 2 shows that I want to do tonight. I'm an insomniac, so might as well. Sanders moves to the number 1 spot in the polls. Excuse me. That was awesome news. And it was, you could see somewhat the trajectory of it, just based on how well he did in that last debate and all of the policy proposals that he was putting out. It just felt like there was a momentum to it. Well, it's good to see that it's espoused in a DNC approved, A-rated, awesome methodology poll. And then my heart dropped when I saw this. I was like, what the hell is this? Mitch McConnell, you need to explain to the people of Kentucky why you believe that we should do nothing to stop Russia from interfering in our elections. Stop obstructing legislation to protect our democracy. Now, there are a few ridiculous parts of this. A, you're yelling at Mitch McConnell. And you're yelling at Mitch McConnell, telling him that he needs to help protect our democracy from the Russians. Fact of the matter is, if you're going to yell at Mitch McConnell, you need to yell at Mitch McConnell to stop Republicans from screwing over the elections. Because I guarantee you that 1,000 times more that Republicans were to blame for Hillary Clinton losing that race than the Russians. You are openly talking about Facebook and Twitter ads, the majority of which took place after the election. And you're talking about this from a troll farm that from a capitalistic perspective has every reason to use the election to sell their products, which was clickbait. It's not the Russians. If you want to call interstate cross-check, Republicans literally shaving people off the roads. If you want to talk about the voter ID laws, which were literally designed to create a hindrance, just a small number of people, that probability of people that will have a difficult time getting to the electorate. You don't need much. What? Wisconsin. The number of people that were shaved off the voting rolls in places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and these places was less than Hillary Clinton's margin of loss. I hope you get my point. Republicans have been gaming this system for God knows how long. And they did the exact same thing in this election. And if you're looking for the reason that Hillary Clinton lost that goes beyond the fact that Hillary Clinton was just a horrible candidate, I would look there first before looking across overseas to the goddamn Russians. Just saying. I've taken that perspective from the day one because the story, for the most part, made zero sense. It was like a Tom Clancy novel. A party that failed magnificently was looking for a way to explain away their failure to a large group of people that were gap-mouthed when Hillary Clinton lost that race. That's what that was. You can read it in the book Shattered. A day after Hillary Clinton lost, she needed a way to explain why she lost. And she said, it wasn't my fault. I wasn't a horrible candidate. It wasn't because I chose Tim Kaine. It wasn't because I cheated Sanders. It wasn't because of 1,000 different reasons. It was the Russians. And the media ran with it because they hated Trump. And the Democratic Party hated Trump. And everybody in this process had every incentive to go with this notion of Trump and Russia. Some just because they hated Trump, some because he was an ogre, some because they were Democrats, and some because they had no other reason to explain how Hillary Clinton, the person who Huffington Post said has a 98% chance of winning on the night that she lost, how the hell did she lose? It wasn't the Russians. Your candidate just failed. And if you're looking for somebody that was gaming the system, I would point to you, the Republican Party. Here's the catch, though. I don't really care. I don't care. I used to care. Back in, 2008, I used to care about the voter ID laws and those type of things whenever they put those things into play, because it was clear that this was a way of dinging and lowering the vote total. Republicans have a better chance of winning when the vote total is suppressed. This was known 10, 20, 30 years ago, and at a certain point became Republican dogma in regards to the way of lowering the vote total by gaming the system to do so. Whether that's voter ID laws, whether that's slowing the process of people trying to enter into the vote, meaning like what was taking place in, what was that woman? I can't think of that woman who was running. But they were slowing the number of people who are able to get into the polling locations in order to register to vote. Stacey Abrams. Even this notion of shutting down polling locations to extend the lines to make it difficult for people to vote. These things were gaming the system that Republicans would do, especially after the voter ID law was struck down. But something happened in 2016. Democrats, when given the opportunity, did the same thing to Sanders. And that made me realize, I don't care. You cheated my guy. And after cheating my guy, you're supposed to have me care that you're screaming about somebody that cheated you? And not just that, not screaming about somebody that cheated you, pointing to the wrong person. Pointing to the wrong person. That guy did it. No, that guy didn't do it. And by any metric of imagination, if you want to really look at the numbers and the data, you can see that it was the Republican Party that was doing it. Which makes me think that this was done to just cover the party. And by blaming the Republican Party, that doesn't get you the bang for your buck as blaming the Russians. I don't like this tweet. Bernie Sanders did this tweet while in Kentucky, going after Mitch McConnell in his home state. Here's the catch. This tweet is an incomplete statement. Whoever was working Bernie Sanders' Twitter box sent a truncated statement that didn't necessarily have everything that was involved in the actual statement. It is true that he included Russia, but there's more to this, and I want to go to that. So take a look at this. This is where this was taken from, the statement that the tweet is talking about. Now, listen to the whole statement, and we can talk about it after.
And when we talk about the need for the Senate Act, we are also talking about the need to prevent Russia and other countries from interfering in our elections, and the need to protect the integrity of American elections. Now, you may want to vote Democrat, you may want to vote Republican. I hope you want to vote Democrat. But most of all, you want to make sure that your vote is properly counted, that our election system is not hacked by Russia or any other country or entity, and that the heart and soul of American democracy, free and fair elections, remains intact. The good news is that the House passed legislation to update our voting equipment to produce paper voting records and keep voting machines disconnected from the internet. But for whatever reason, Senator McConnell has blocked that legislation from getting a vote in the Senate. And once again, I say to Senator McConnell, if you want to vote against that legislation, you can vote against it. But I cannot understand why you believe that we should do nothing to stop Russia and other countries from interfering with our elections. Senator McConnell, stop the obstructionism. Allow us to vote on maintaining the integrity of American elections.
All right, that's the whole statement. That's the entirety of the statement. Meaning, this tweet, and whoever sent out this tweet, sent out a truncated tweet and just included Russia as opposed to the entire statement, which was Russia and any other actors that are involved in the process of trying to impede American democracy. The people below this particular tweet did not take kindly to this tweet. George Galloway, that's embarrassing, Bernie, sums it up. That is a painful indictment by George Galloway, considering who George Galloway is. Slightly funny, but painful. Look, I don't like that tweet. I hate that tweet. And I don't even particularly like the tagline of hitting Russia on this, even though there are two reasons he do it. One, because it's an uphill fight to not do that. You can say that's weak, you can say that's squirrely, you can say all sorts of stuff. But the truth of the matter is, it is an uphill battle to go against the dogma from the standpoint of what is mainstream thought. And mainstream thought is, even among people who don't necessarily care about the Russia stuff, that Russia was doing something, even if they can't necessarily tell what it is. And that is doubly so for Democrats who are in outright conspiracy theory mode. Meaning, you're floating in a particular world, and in that particular world, they believe things that are just untrue, or at the very least, amount to conspiracy theories. By the same token, you still have to relate to the people who are floating and aggregating around that conspiracy theory. Meaning, in his language, he uses it. I'm just saying, I don't particularly like it, but I do understand why he would do it. On a secondary point, Sanders and the Russiagate thing is a touchy subject, and that's to say the least. For everybody else that's in the race, the Russiagate thing is just something distant and they're separate and distinct from it. They're not part of the process. It's something that they can talk about, and they talk about kind of however they talk about it. They have nothing to do with it per se. It's like that Russiagate thing over there, that those damn Ruskies. But that's not really true for Sanders. Sanders is distrusted right off the bat from the Democratic establishment because they don't consider him a Democrat. And what they know, and is right about, is Sanders getting in fundamentally changes what it means to be a Democrat. And many of them cease to be, at the very least, cease to be in any particular center of power after he gets in office. Because, for the most part, the center of gravity is going to orient around the president. And if the president is one Bernie Sanders, and he's already given you his policy proposal and his platform and the things that he wants to push, every Democrat at that point is under pressure to either push that strategy or not. And if they don't, they will suffer for it, especially if he wins. Seeing as if he wins, that means that all of the slings and arrows and the things that they were using, the scare tactics, this guy's a socialist, this guy's going to have this country looking like Venezuela, failed. It's a mandate. It's essentially saying the country wants something fundamentally different. And this guy who is literally fundamentally different than everybody else won. They don't want that at all. They don't want that at all. They want things to keep ticking along and for them to get their centrists back into power, or somebody at the very least who can be pushed to be similar to such as Warren. My point is this. For Bernie Sanders, the Russiagate thing is something that he is intimately close to. Because after all, if you remember, what WikiLeaks revealed is that the Democratic Party was cheating Sanders. That same Bernie Sanders that is running for president again, that same Bernie Sanders that is distrusted by the Democratic establishment, and that same Bernie Sanders who knows he was being cheated because the Russians, according to them, told him so. They don't like that. They don't like that. In fact, it's the exact same reason that Sanders never talks about Julian Assange. Again, you could say that that's weak. You could say that he shouldn't do that, all that stuff. But this is not a right or wrong thing from the standpoint of politics. And let me be clear on what I mean by that. Most things orient around to objectives. If your objective is to be president of the United States, you have to work between the lines in order to do so. There are some lines you can break. There are some lines you cannot. And you cannot necessarily break every line at the exact same time. In Sanders' position, in his particular case, he has made the choice that there are some lines he needs to go between. And one of those lines is the Russiagate stuff. Hence, him using it in his political discourse. I have to be honest, though. I don't necessarily know what this means if a Sanders is elected. I don't necessarily have this grand idea of Sanders upping hostilities with Russia in this regard. I do have that idea on a Warren or on one of the other candidates doing that. In this very specific case, Sanders knows he was being cheated. Sanders knows that he was being cheated because WikiLeaks told him so. But again, this creates this kind of awkward situation where he is stuck towing this particular line because he's not wanting to take flack associated with pushing against the narrative, be it in mainstream media or be it castigated in other Democratic circles when candidates turn to him and say, "How dare you deny that Russia attacked us? Are you against our intelligence services, Bernie? Are you just like Trump?" That's not necessarily something he wants to deal with when he's already pushing a strategy that other people have been going against, even the media itself, as is. It's complicated for one Mr. Bernie Sanders. It's not complicated for me because I am not running for president. I can look at this and say this is problematic. Sanders, however, with his objectives to be president of the United States, could care less about it being problematic. I'm just saying, the politics compels the behavior. In this particular case, he needs a bunch of Democrats that are suspicious of him to vote for him. He can't get it by the support of the left in and of itself. He's running in a primary. There are a bunch of Hillary voters that hate his guts, hate the fact that he gets up every morning, hate the fact that he's brushing his teeth, hate the fact that he's kissing his wife, Jane Sanders, hates the fact that he's on the campaign stage out here to barn burner crowds, and Hillary Clinton is back home somewhere trying to find Bill Clinton and keep him from the maid. They hate his guts. Think about it for yourself. You can say you hate it. I do too. By the same token, certainly you can understand where he's coming from. And you can also understand, I think, if you look at this and say, what would happen if, and add the if in, Sanders pushes back against the Russia stuff? What would happen if Sanders embraces the Assange thing? What would happen if? And I guarantee you the end of that if is he is not going to go anywhere. He would implode in the polls. They will not in any way vote for him. And anytime he gets on that debate stage, he will be castigated and pushed to the side as if he's some kind of, radical of sorts. And by the way, this is more so dealing with Democratic voters because ultimately it's a Democratic contest. And these are the ones that are most wrapped up into the conspiracy theory of Russiagate. I don't have to like it. It just is what it is. not going to keep this one long because it's late. Wow, I have 149 people here. That's amazing. Gabrielle Badwolf, I love the name. Only difference between Democrats and GOP is the animal mascot. That's funny. Look, it's two capitalist class. And you have two capitalist class. One saying we shouldn't rape the middle class as hard. We should touch their head and touch their hair as we go about our way, as we do that. And the other one that says, why pretend? That's what you have. You have two of the same, for the most part, class. It's two wings of the same class. My argument is, I would prefer to have a left and a right and let the public choose which one it wants. Not to milk, a milquetoast right wing. No, I want a party to which represents this particular class. And that is not what we have. I mean, think about it logically for yourself. You have dollars or you have pitchforks. The moment that the Democratic Party decided to take gobs and gobs and gobs of money, and we're dependent upon that gobs and gobs of money, how do you win a race? How are you going to ensure that you get that money again? When you go to those plutocrats and you tell them, yeah, I want to pass Medicare for all and I want to do door shut. You're not taking my taxes to do that. No, I don't want you to use the money that's generated by this particular society for the people of that society. How would I get my $10 billion? How would I get my $10 billion? The Democratic Party sold its soul for nickels and dimes. And they sold you out in the process. You don't have two classes, in a sense, arguing about trying to, their visions of this particular society. And the society suffers because of such. Because ultimately you have two parties that are so close to one another that the public gets disinterested in the process. And not just disinterested in the process, they punish the Democratic Party for what it seems to just be lies. I mean, you've sold out the middle class for cash. And that's not just what I think. You can look at the way the polling goes in regards to what the public wants versus what the public gets. And the party that's supposed to deal with that particular thing, meaning the release valve to the capitalistic effects, or to the way capitalism tends to accrue wealth to one side of the distribution scale, was supposed to be the Democratic Party. That is the party that has not done that, and as such, is being punished. How do you lose that many seats all throughout the United States? How do you lose the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency? And if RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, drops dead tomorrow, Donald Trump is going to get another Supreme Court seat. And that's after your guy being so weak and not fighting for the seat to which was owed to him. Which was owed to him. Trump is in that office because of you. Period. It wasn't the Russians. It wasn't the Russians. Let's see. Cool Blue 71 changed the party animal mascots to a pig, Republicans, and sheep to Democrats. Quite appropriate for both. Quite appropriate indeed. Democrats like to bristle when people say there's no difference. I mean, there's a modicum of difference. But is that really what you want in the context of a party that is supposed to represent your interests? Think about it for yourself for the moment. The Democratic Party and Republican Party spends around 70% of their time begging for cash, talking to plutocrats, talking to people where they need to get money from. 90% of the races that are won by the side with the most cash. You don't even need to look at anything else. Just how much cash do they have? How much cash do they have? And 9 times out of 10, you would be right. How do you call that a democracy? How do you even call that a representative government? Under those terms, who do they logically represent? Think about what I'm saying. If you know 90% of the races are going to be determined with the side with the most cash, logically, as a candidate, who do you represent? Who do you gravitate towards? Who do you ensure you get their support by? Even when these Democrats are going to these various meetings to try to get cash from the various plutocrats in the room, what do you think they're doing? They're selling their position. Look, if you buy this and you give me cash, I will go out and do this, but it's a deal. It's a negotiation between a plutocrat class versus what they can give to the voters to get those voters to vote for him. Sanders doesn't do that because Sanders is essentially paid by you. When you get tired of these guys essentially taking cash and then spinning this web of things that they're telling you that they're going to do, and essentially they don't. And it's not even a natural bearing. The party itself says, you have to push, you have to push, you have to push. And when Occupy Wall Street came out, what did Obama do? He cracked heads. He cracked heads. I need a groundswell of support. Oh, God, get the fucking people out there. Get them out there. Ray Foyley. Don't agree, Jamal. You're too easy on Bernie. You're a longtime patron since right after seeing you at Convergence Conference. Ray Foley. You think I'm too easy on him? It's not that I'm too easy on him. It's not. I told you, I hated this tweet. By the same token, this is not, to me anyway, right, wrong, or anywhere in between. It's a man who wants to be president, and what does a man do in order to become president? I mean, that's literally what we're talking about. It's not that I like it. Clearly, I don't like it. I've said as much. I spent the entire opening saying as much. But it's kind of a, how do you become president in the United States? If Bernie Sanders comes out and trashes Russiagate, what happens? Be honest. I mean, you tell me. You tell me. Ray Foley, you tell me. If Sanders comes out and trashes Russiagate, what do you think happens? Like, the Democratic Party. I have the guy who I work at the radio station with. He's a Democrat, that's his thing. He's into the Russiagate stuff. He believes it, full stock and barrel. Him and I get into good arguments on it. He says, nobody on my Twitter feed likes Sanders. They don't trust him. Like, in as much as we disagree or disbelieve in the Russiagate stuff, they do. Like they are walking around in a fucking bubble, in a conspiracy theory. And so you have somebody who's trying to get into a primary with people like that. Come on, Ray, tell me. What do you do? What do you do? Like, how do you get through a primary like this? Now, you could say, well, he just shouldn't bring it up. Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe he shouldn't just bring it up. The problem is, the argument that they're hitting Mitch McConnell with is election stuff, election integrity. And how do you not bring up the last election, which they are using to make the argument about election integrity without mentioning the Russians to a crowd of Democrats? Ray, it's not that I like it, man. It's not that I like it. And I gotta be honest, I'm not even sure how to bash Sanders on this. Like, I hope you understand what I mean. I can say I dislike it. I could say that this is a conspiracy theory. I can say all that stuff. But I also have to say Sanders is trying to run to be president of the United States. And in trying to run to be president of the United States, there are certain things that end the possibility of him becoming president of the United States. One of those things is telling a Democratic crowd that you don't believe in the Russian stuff and that Hillary Clinton just lost. He's dealing with conspiracy theories. Ergo, he ends up saying conspiracy theory things. Just saying. I can add context to it. I can explain it. I understand why he does it. I even go so far as to say, from a political sense, it might even make sense. Like, if it's me, and I am trying to run to be president of the United States, whether I believe in the Russia stuff or not, he's using it to hit Trump. And not just using it to hit Trump, he's using it to ingratiate himself to a crowd of Clintonites and conspiracy theories. I'm just saying. Bobby Mercer. So he brings up Russia to erode the Russiagate. No. He's not trying to erode the Russiagate narrative at all. Like, that's not what he's doing. He's not bringing up Russiagate to erode the Russiagate narrative. I don't even know if he thinks that's possible. The Russiagate narrative at this point is just kind of instantiated into the American lexicon. It's not that people disbelieve it, they just don't care about it. Also, I think people just know Hillary Clinton lost. But beyond that, Bob, the reason he's bringing this up is for, I would argue, two reasons. One, it ingratiates himself to the crowd. He's an independent senator from Vermont who the Democratic Party, particularly the establishment wing, distrust him. They do. This had nothing to do with eroding the narrative. Beyond that point, Sanders, anything Sanders says that goes against the narrative in this particular point, including mentioning Assange, creates this problem that the information that those things revealed was that Sanders was being cheated. Any notion of WikiLeaks, any notion of Russiagate, all that stuff is a weird spot for him. So, again, you can hit him for it, but if you hit him for it, at the very least, get where he's coming from. At the very least, get where he's coming from. But, fair enough. I don't like it. Bernie been a Russiagator. Yes. Yes. I don't know how much he believes it, but whether he believes it or not, he toes the line. He toes the line. And look, again, I ask you. You want to be president of the United States. You're running in a Democratic primary. You put 5 proposals out, all of which were radical transformations of America's society. You are in the number 1 polling position currently, at least in the latest poll. And you have a bunch of Democrats that hate your guts, all of which are Clinton supporters, all of which thought you should not in any way have been in the race. And the bitter hatred, vitriolic hysteria gets lumped onto you, meaning this weird projection that failure of a candidate is somehow his fault and his responsibility. They use Russia as this kind of cognitive salve of sorts, this thing to soothe the burn that took place when they failed. So what do? You run with it. You work between the lines. These guys are conspiracy theorists. I can't say anything about this subject that won't necessarily look favorably on me, so I follow the lines and I hit the lines or hit the things that I can hit and break the rules that I can break. This is just something he doesn't think he can break. So, just saying, man. Sanders is playing 40. No, it's not 40-dimensional chess. It's not 4D chess. How's it 4D chess? Look, one or two things is true. Either he believes it or he doesn't. If he believes it, then this just kind of go along the lines of his belief. If he doesn't believe it, then he's playing between the lines. I mean, is there really, honestly, seriously, is there any situation that you can think of Sanders attacking the Russiagate narrative and still getting through the primaries? No. None. Zero. I have no belief in that at all. No belief in that at all. Ruben Garcia. What's happening, Ruben Garcia? Liz Warren is fake as fuck. Yes, Liz Warren is fake. I don't even know why that's a question. Like, people are like, there's a division between Sanders and Warren. There's no division between Sanders and Warren. I mean, come on. It's like, why would you want to echo? Ask the same question at TYT chat and they couldn't even bother to answer. Really? That's sad. They love Warren, though. Majority chat. Also, yeah, they love Warren. What legislation is Mitch blocking? It's a voter thing. So they're trying to get legislation passed in order to deal with election integrity. Democrats are using this as somewhat of an attack point against the Republican Party because they're trying to say that Trump is working with the Russians, and because Trump is working with the Russians, or at the very least, the Republican Party is helping Trump and protecting Trump by not allowing the legislation to go through because they want to keep the elections unsafe. By keeping the elections unsafe, that is evidence that the Republican Party doesn't care about election integrity and may be working with foreign actors to undermine the elections. I've talked to Democrats who literally and honestly believe that Donald Trump worked with the Russians, despite Mueller saying it wasn't true. And they would go so far as to say that we would never have another fair election in this country because Trump is going to continuously work with the Russians. This legislation is an attack point. Mitch McConnell is a fucking idiot. You should let the legislation go through. I'm just saying. The catch here is what's in the legislation. And there may be something in the legislation that the Republican Party doesn't want to deal with. For example, if you have something in the legislation that deals with ensuring that everybody gets registered to vote, the Republican Party is not going to be for that because they want to lower the vote tally. Republican dogma is always to lower the number of people to vote because they have better chances in that situation. If you have automatic voter registration, well, that's out the window. So I don't know what's in the bill in that sense, but it may be a poison pill in the bill what the Democrats know that the Republicans wouldn't do, so they can use it as an attack point for McConnell. I mean, it's decent politics. I guess the issue is the moment that this comes up as a thing of politics, it's going to come up from the standpoint of Sanders. Oh, wow. Eric Anderson. All kinds of forces try to influence elections. Yes, that's true. Of course, it's not shocking that Russia screws with us. It also should not be shocking that domestic forces do also. Eric Anderson, yeah. I mean, my thing was, look, my argument was always, I don't know if Russia was screwing with the elections. I just don't believe it. Would I be shocked if they did? No. All countries, all powers screw with elections in some way. So that's not necessarily this kind of, oh my God, I'm shocked. America's reaction to this has been just weird and absurd. We literally intervened into Russia's election, putting in Boris Yeltsin. Do you know who Boris Yeltsin vice president was? Vladimir Putin. We are responsible for Putin being in that office. We put a drunkard in that office because we know we could rape that country blind. And that's exactly what we did. Shock capitalism. We killed tens to hundreds of thousands of Russians in that changeover. And there were some Americans that got magnificently rich at the expense of all those deaths. Then Clinton bragged about it. In fact, they even bragged about it on the cover of Time magazine. That wasn't Facebook and Twitter ads, by the way. That was direct intervention into the political process in Russia in order to prevent a communist from taking power and putting Yeltsin in that office, because with Yeltsin, they could play ball. We ran roughshod over any notion of their sovereignty because Yeltsin essentially was a traitor to the country itself. Now, talk to me again about Facebook and Twitter ads and explain to me why I'm supposed to be, I'm hurt and perturbed that they will use Facebook and Twitter ads. This election shouldn't have even been close. You lost the reality show host. Own it. And then, if I'm being honest, I always find it absurd on its face when you look at the way Republicans were gaming the system. And it's like, we're going to ignore the fact that Republicans game the system and go to the Russians, which tells me you're not being serious. It tells me you're not being serious. And I hate to tell you this, but I stopped caring the moment you cheated Sanders. I'm just saying. Just saying. Look, guys, I don't begrudge you for hitting Sanders on this at all. People function based on their priorities to some degree, meaning your environment creates your behavior. What is the thing that you want to accomplish, and what do you have to do to accomplish that thing? And within the context of that, how much can you push? How much can you break? In this particular case, from a media space, I can hit Sanders on this because I am not running for president. By the same token, if you're running in a Democratic primary and you want to be president of the United States, what you don't do is try to say that the Russiagate stuff, the reason, by their estimate, of why Hillary Clinton lost is bogus and a conspiracy theory. You'll be eaten alive in those debates, and not just the debates, from the people themselves, those Hillary voters, those rabid, feral Hillary voters. Just saying. Ray Foley, I'm sorry you disagree with me on this. I mean, is the disagreement that he could break that wall in regards to the Russiagate stuff and still win? Is the disagreement that the Democratic establishment and the people who are Democrats and Hillary voters and all these other people won't punish him for opening that particular can of worms? Or is it that I'm just not hitting him for doing so? My problem here, and the thing that I hit my head on, is that hitting him for doing so is like, it's like, how do I hit him for it? It's like, I don't like it. He was already a Russiagator. I already knew he was a Russiagator from the standpoint of the stuff that he would say, whether he believed it or not. I think he knew he was being cheated. At the same token, he couldn't say shit about the fact that he was being cheated, because otherwise he would have never even got to the point that he is now. So it's like, yes, I hate it. No, I don't particularly like it. Yes, I would love for Sanders to come out there and say, I'm going to pardon Julian Assange, and he shouldn't be we shouldn't be going after him in the first place. And yes, that shit is a conspiracy theory. They're making shit up just to attack Russia in order to create a red scare, in order to cover the fact that Hillary Clinton lost, and cover the fact that I was being cheated. I would love for him to do that. Just break down one day and just flip the fuck out. Yes, I would love for him to do that. On day 2 of that, he will look exactly like Biden is in the polls. We will still support him. We would love him. And he would go nowhere. Compromise is just part of it. It's not that I like it. It just is what it is. All right. I'm going to end this. Bob is going to call me bad names, and that's fair. And I was weighing this because I kept thinking to myself, well, look, is this bias? Like, are you being biased on this front? And that's what I kept thinking to myself. It's like, how do you hit him for this when you get where he's coming from? By the same token, I don't necessarily like it. It's this kind of weighing the two things. Yeah. That's my thinking. So you can hit me with it if you want. Rock Lee, Jamal, cover the George Gage article. George Gage. All right, George Gage. I don't know who George Gage is. All right, guys. I'm going to end this because I have one or two more that I want to do. I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren. Russiagate, Venezuela, and Julian Assange is why Tulsi is a 1A and Bernie is a 1B. No, I mean, Tulsi can talk about whatever she wants because Tulsi is not winning. There's a difference in those things. And if Tulsi was winning, I would guarantee you that Tulsi's speech would be moderated just as much as Sanders' speech is moderated. I hate to tell you this. I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way. But Tulsi's freedom is entirely from this notion that she doesn't believe she can win. Back in 2016, Sanders was free as a bird. He could say and do whatever he wanted because he didn't think he could win. Not believing you can win gives a certain degree of freedom in the way that people operate. It's just open, it's like the man who thinks he's going to die is a free man. Well, same thing is in the sense of the election. It's not that she's a 1A and a 1B. Environment creates behavior. And believing otherwise, I think you're missing the boat. Yes, Tulsi Gabbard can say all sorts of stuff. Tulsi Gabbard is not even going to be in the third debate. I don't mean that as a slight to Tulsi Gabbard. I'm saying that to say is her goal was not necessarily to win the presidency. Even if she caught fire, she would have loved it, and I would have supported her for it. Her goal was to push the conversation in regards to this notion of anti-war or anti-intervention and the way that goes against our current dogma. I want her on that debate stage because I want her pushing Sanders to the left on those issues. Also, I want her espousing that point of view and knocking down neocons exactly in the way that she's done in the last two debates. But this notion that she's 1A and 1B, she is free. That's the only difference. That is the only difference between the two. Do a segment on Andrew Cohen's article on George Gage. I see. He's in prison now because of Kamala, but he's innocent. Is that the one where she kept on death row? Eric Anderson. Oh, thank you, man. Is that the one she kept on death row? I'll check it out. I'll check it out, Rockley. I'll check it out. A mere 4 year. That's why Tulsi is a 1A and Bernie Sanders is a 1B. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. I like both. So don't misunderstand me. I like both. Sanders is a horse I'm riding. And again, I don't... It's not the individuals, man. Like, look, the people who are running and the various actors, they have a bit of leeway. That leeway, to some degree, is garnered by what they're pushing for in some respects. But any person, any battle, any person that's in some kind of thing to which they're operating, it's to some degree operating based on the terrain to which they're operating. They're not a thing unto themselves that is entirely and utterly radically free. They're always working between some level of lines. The lines to which they work at depends on what they can accomplish, what they think they can accomplish. In Tulsi Gabbard's case, her forecasting, I would imagine, is this is what I'm going to push for. And I'm going to be consistent within context of this because I'm going to win or lose based on this particular thing. And that's what she did. She stuck to what she wanted to do in the sense of the debate thing or in the sense of what her campaign was about. And I think that's a positive development in that sense. And like I said, I want her on the debate stage. But her environment allows for her behavior. And it's every bit as much as Sanders' environment allows for his behavior. The higher up you get into this notion of trying to win, your behavior is going to have to conform to the environment. Again, it's not that I like it. It's just politics is one of those things where people have to work between the lines sometimes. It just depends on what lines you're going to be willing to work and what you're willing to give in that context. If Tulsi Gabbard was in contention of winning, she would look differently than what she looks now. I would promise you that. This notion that the individual is going to remain unchanged in a political process where they need the votes of millions of people doesn't necessarily fly. You will get your coalition that you need in order to kind of make that work, in which case you can create a stable body of power base that you can operate from, and it allows a certain degree of latitude in that by which you can try to be yourself. But that's always within the context of, being pulled on by people you don't necessarily like or ideas you don't necessarily want to accrue to, but in the sense of trying to make that shit work and make your coalition work, you function. It is politics. It's politics. YouTube, George Gage versus Kevin Chappell. Never Kamala. I will. He's in prison for 70 years. Jesus Christ. Since 1999, it's on YouTube. I'll check it out. Rockley, I'll check it out, I promise. I check it out. Yeah. If anything, Kamala Harris is getting just desserts by getting taken apart by Tulsi Gabbard. And if Tulsi Gabbard has done one thing right in her entire life, it was eating Kamala Harris alive on that debate stage. And have Kamala Harris just stand there, gap mouth, saying she's proud of a record that is utterly and entirely atrocious, and having the American public be aghast by the fact of the record itself, and even more so that she was proud of it. Hence the 12-point drop in the polls. I'll check it out, Rockley. All right, guys. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.